Tonight, tough questions about costly travel nursing contracts and why local graduates aren't getting hired.
There is a job for every one of them.
Is this fraudulent activity?
A symptom, I guess, of the problem.
Government is under fire from opposition over how it's dealing with the healthcare crisis.
For the first time in 4 years, the Come By Chance refinery is producing fuels once again.
It's a fantastic day for Brea, for our employees, for Canada in general.
That story coming up.
We've left a big gap in all our lives, and especially the family. It's just a massive void.
Forever remembered in Greens Pond. Government pays tribute to the late MHA for Fogo Cape Friels.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Calls today for the RCMP to investigate the province's travel nurse contracts, deals worth tens of millions of dollars. Now, the opposition is questioning whether there was fraudulent activity when the government spent nearly $36 million on private nursing. It's also accusing the Premier of deflecting responsibility. Here Now's Jessica Singer reports.
It doesn't appear that the Minister or the Premier really had a full grasp on what was happening.
PC Opposition House Leader Barry Pettin said Premier Andrew Furey is passing the buck on who's to blame for shelling out tens of millions to a private nursing agency between April and August of last year.
I found that laughable, actually. So he asked the Minister of Health to investigate themselves. So basically, the Premier said, I'm asking the Minister of Health to investigate ourselves. I mean, if anyone, and again, maybe we're in different universes. I know the universe I'm in, and that makes no sense.
That's on top of the $100 million the health authority spent on travel nurses between April 2022 and 2023. Furey told reporters Wednesday that it's the health authority who's responsible for entering into contracts with private nursing agencies. He asked Health Minister Tom Osborne to investigate the contracts after a Globe and Mail report revealed that travel nurses were able to expense things such as cabs, furniture, and cable bills.
Sometimes things go off the rails for whatever reason.
PC leader Tony Wakeham called the Premier's comment dismissive. He wants the RCMP to get involved to investigate what happened to the $1.6 million the province gave to a private agency for nurse meal allowances, money which nurses say they didn't receive.
There's some elements there to say, is this fraudulent activity? I don't know the answer to those.
NDP leader Jim Dinn said the situation has brought light to the fact that the Department of Health hasn't made long-term investments in nursing.
The Minister does his best to downplay this, and as if it's nothing to see here. We've been pointing to this as a symptom, I guess, of the problem, a long-standing problem.
Furey says it's possible some things may have been rushed to fill vacancies during the pandemic. He assures people the government does not want to be relying on travel nurses, but that they can be necessary to keep emergency rooms open. Jessica Singer, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Canadian Health Labs, one of the companies providing private nurses to the province, is defending its contract. In a statement to CBC, it says its contract rates vary by region and specialty. It also says the contract terms are fair and transparent and include competitive hourly rates along with supports like housing and travel accommodations.
Haley Cheeseman is graduating from the School of Nursing Studies in St. John's this year. She's working as a nurse in the city as part of a work term. But so far, she doesn't have a full-time, permanent job, and she's not alone. Cheeseman asked her classmates and learned that fewer than 25 of the more than 100 graduating students have full-time, permanent jobs lined up.
Throughout our entire nursing career, as students, we're told, when you graduate, you're going to get a permanent full-time position. There's no doubts. We're in a nursing shortage and crisis right now. You're guaranteed those positions. And now here we have 103 of us graduating, and majority of the class is only being offered temporary full-time positions, which might not even last them a year until they'll have to drop back to casual hours.
There is a job for every one of them.
Osborne says they may not get the exact job they're looking for, but those students can help the province reduce its reliance on expensive travel nurses.
The two areas where we are still utilizing agency nursing in the metro region are medicine and surgery. Those are the two most difficult areas to recruit to. So any of those nurses that haven't gotten permanent jobs, who want to replace those 20 agency nurses in St. John's, the Health Authority will hire them today.
There are a total of 219 nurses graduating from 3 schools in this province this year. The province says 168 of them have accepted nursing positions. Of those, 75 are permanent full-time positions. Osborne says there is work available if nurse students want it.
So there are jobs available across the province. It is matching people to where the jobs are available and their willingness to go to where they are.
The union that represents student nurses says the province has to do more to make those jobs attractive to new nurses.
Nurses are burnt out, they're not being paid enough, they are stressed out, and of course these kind of jobs, when there's an option to become a travel nurse, that is a lot more appealing.
Critics like Harris say that unless that changes, the hundreds of nurses the province hopes to recruit from India or Dubai won't stay either. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, in other news, we have more information tonight about what would have been the province's first ride-sharing service owned by a man accused of sexual assault. Now, according to documents obtained by multiple media outlets, the government approved the man's application in just one day. Now, as first reported by The Telegram, the license application from Red Sea Riding included an 8-page company policy that was heavily copied from Uber's website. The documents show Josef Tesfamichael wrote government in mid-January saying he submitted the license application. Now, after some back and forth, he was informed the next day that his application was approved and that he could start operations immediately. Provincial regulations require a company to conduct criminal background checks on its drivers. And while Tesfamichael assured via email this was done, there's no indication he provided that proof. By January 19th, the province was congratulating Red Sea Riding, but it suspended the license days later, saying new information came to light. Tesfamichael has been charged with 6 offenses, most of them sexual in nature, against a minor. Well, a man who insisted on representing himself in a sex assault trial didn't have much to say during a hearing today on whether to label him as a dangerous offender. As Here and Now's Malone Mullen reports, it's a strategy that could see him behind bars indefinitely.
Stephen Hopkins isn't facing a normal prison sentence. He was convicted in 2022 of sexual assault after breaking into a Cowan Heights home and forcing himself on a teenager. But prosecutors are arguing she's only one of multiple victims over Hopkins' life. That's why Hopkins is now staring down the barrel of dangerous offender status, a rarely used legal mechanism that means he'll be kept behind bars as long as he's deemed a risk to public safety. The Crown focused today on 6 incidents, 3 that ended in convictions, arguing they all share the same defining features. The complainants, 2 of whom were assaulted on Long Pond Trail in 2020, were women Hopkins didn't know. They were alone and vulnerable, 3 of them were young, and all of them, according to Hopkins, appeared to beckon him. In the Cowan Heights case, Hopkins believed the girl handing him a glass of water was an invitation to sex, and he told a doctor during a psychiatric assessment that in the future he would continue taking advantage of these so-called invitations. He would also continue with sexual acts, he said, even if the woman withdrew her consent. Prosecutors say that's the most concerning issue at hand, that whatever Hopkins has done in the past will be repeated in the future without restraint or remorse. A judge is now mulling over whether to hand Hopkins dangerous offender status. If he does, it means Hopkins will be given an indefinite sentence, with no chance of parole for 7 years from the date of his arrest. He'll have a parole hearing every 2 years after that, but even if he's released in the community, he'll be on parole until he dies. The psychiatric report assessing Hopkins gave him an 80% chance of reoffending within the next decade. And faced even with such a grave sentence, Hopkins declined to defend himself. He didn't call any evidence, testify, or offer the judge a final argument, and ended his case by telling the judge he accepted the Crown's submissions. The judge will hand down his decision April 12th. Malone Mullen, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, for the first time in nearly 4 years, the Come By Chance refinery in Placentia Bay is producing fuel. As Terry Roberts reports, the refinery is now being dubbed one of the world's largest producers of renewable diesel.
You're looking at some of the first renewable diesel fuel produced at the Come By Chance refinery. Clear as water, made from animal fat, food waste, vegetable oils. Ready to fuel everything from a pickup to a train or power a factory. Brea says their product reduces emissions by more than 50% when compared to petroleum-based diesel.
It's a fantastic day for Brea, for our employees, for Canada in general.
Texas-based Brea Renewables announced today that commercial operations at Come By Chance are now underway. 3 years after the company acquired the facility, and 4 years after the pandemic shook up the global economy and forced the closure of a troubled operation that once refined 130,000 barrels of oil every day.
Effectively last week, we put oil back into those units and turned the refinery back on and started over the weekend producing finished grade renewable diesel.
Brea says it plans to slowly increase production to 18,000 barrels of biodiesel per day in the coming weeks, using raw material known as feedstock imported from the United States and South America. The first load of about 300,000 barrels will be transported to international markets by ship sometime this spring, though O'Malley won't say where it's going. Brea has invested hundreds of millions to prepare the refinery for this new type of production, with a workforce of up to 800 people on site for many months. The federal government was a big investor because the project supports efforts to decarbonize the economy, and the provincial government also spent millions to protect the refinery's infrastructure while a search for a buyer was carried out. But the conversion had some major setbacks, about 2 years behind schedule. A flash fire 17 months ago that resulted in the death of Clarenville resident Sean Peddle and injured 7 others. An RCMP investigation into the blast is ongoing. Brea officials believe this product will be in big demand as industries shift to greener forms of energy, and that government incentives such as low-carbon fuel tax credits will make this fuel affordable. But Brea is not stopping here. Todd O'Malley tells me they plan to expand diesel production in the future. They also want to get into the sustainable aviation market and become a player in the green hydrogen market.
We wouldn't have gone down the path of investing the money that we have and bringing all these really talented people back to work if we didn't believe that the economics of the plant were viable and sustainable for the long term.
There's 200 full-time jobs in Come By Chance right now. Now that's about half of what was there when the refinery was in the oil business. But Brea says the future is bright, and they plan to grow that workforce as the refinery expands. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro is repairing 8 of the Muskrat Falls transmission lines because of extreme weather in an isolated area of Newfoundland. NL Hydro says there's minor damage to towers similar to these towers you're seeing here. The damaged towers are about 25 kilometers west of Terra Nova. A recent ice storm caused the peak of the steel towers to bend, but the minor repairs have spurred a major operation because crews need to clear dozens of kilometers of access roads first. Now, reaching all the towers could take a few weeks. Repairs on the first tower should begin today. NL Hydro doesn't know how much the repairs will cost.
Well, the weather started quiet today, but things have changed for most of the island so far this evening. We do have some flurries as well as some ice pellets and freezing rain rather, making its way across the island. Then we've got another system bringing some flurries up across Labrador. But yeah, the main event is this area of low pressure, bringing some snow even to portions of the maritime provinces as well. So Environment Canada does have a couple of warnings in place. Freezing rain warnings for Terra Nova through to the Canaveral Peninsula and all the way towards the Avalon. And then there's also a rainfall warning in place for the eastern portion of the Avalon as well as the southern areas. So right now, we are already seeing some freezing rain being reported in St. John's. Temperature around -3 with those winds out of the southeast around 20 kilometers per hour. And as we head through tonight, we're going to continue to see that freezing rain work its way north and east. It could bring some significant amounts of rain as well. We'll talk about that when I come back.
The town of Gander is getting ready for the opening of the Newfoundland and Labrador Winter Games, which takes place this weekend.
30 people involved in the races now, so we got a good crew.
We'll tell you about that and how last week's snowstorm has helped things. That's coming up on Here and Now.
Well, the recent rough weather has destroyed a section of the breakwater in Trepassey. It was built last summer at a cost of over $900,000. The town had to pay the $120,000 tax bill for that repair. It's not the first time the breakwater there has been damaged by a storm, and officials there believe its design wasn't sufficient to address the realities of changing weather in the area.
As we said before to the engineers a couple of years ago, when this started before tendering process, and that needs a higher breakwater and have the sticks probably 3 or 4 feet into the ground. And again, this didn't happen. The contractor only bid on the scope of work that was designed, and it was a good job, but.
Well, today is Human Trafficking Awareness Day, and human trafficking is a reality in Newfoundland and Labrador. It ranges from people who escaped terrible situations before they moved here to people being exploited in this province. Today in St. John's, the Association for New Canadians held a session to explore and explain human trafficking. Part of the day was a simulation exercise allowing people to step into another world.
The migrant worker exercise is a workshop that is based on role play, and through the workshop people are led through some of the experiences that migrant workers are facing in Canada. And without simplifying the experiences of migrant workers, with this workshop we want to outline and highlight the policies and the structural gaps that are making people vulnerable to be exploited.
And if you or someone you know is a victim of human trafficking, you can call the Canadian Human Trafficking Hotline. The number for that is 1-833-900-1010. The RCMP is warning the public about a new online scam and wants seniors to be aware. Emails are being sent from a phony address from someone pretending to be a police officer. Now, in the message, the fake officer claims to be delivering a subpoena. You can see the fake email address there on your screen. RCMP is stressing that it does not issue subpoenas via email, and it does not have an Outlook.com email address. Police are warning people not to click on any links attached in the email. A section of provincial highway was renamed today in honor of the late MHA and Cabinet Minister Derek Bragg. Bragg was MHA for Fogo Island, Cape Friels. A 65-kilometer stretch of road that runs through his hometown of Greens Pond will now be known as Derek Bragg Way. Bragg died in January, 7 months after announcing he had been diagnosed with tongue cancer. Premier Andrew Furey said it was important to ensure his legacy lives on.
We decided way because instead of road or route, because Derek definitely had a way about him. He had a way about him that put you at ease. He had a way about him that made you laugh. He had a way about him that really allowed for the most diplomatic approach to some tense situations. And because of that, he often got his own way. We miss him dearly, and now he will forever have his own way in a route to his beloved Greens Pond.
One of the province's biggest sporting events is 2 days away. Things are falling into place for the Newfoundland and Labrador Winter Games. This year, Gander is the host community, and their recent snowstorms are helping to set the scene. The CBC's Troy Turner brings us the story.
When the town of Gander was blanketed with the storm last week, there were few complaints from the cross-country ski club. The solid bed of snow was just in time for the Newfoundland and Labrador Winter Games.
Things are looking wonderful. It's been a lot of planning, a lot of back and forth, a lot of work, but we had a wonderful, wonderful volunteer group of executive and directors that have been with us for the last year and a half, working through this.
The ski trails in particular are looking different today than they were the last time Gander hosted the games in 2002.
We had just enough snow to start the games, and then we lost a fair bit of it during the games and had to do a lot of shoveling. We had an old parking lot. Our new parking lot is paved. The old one was dirt, and it became a mud hole. And around the tents, we had 2 athlete tents. They became mud holes. It was pouring rain. The waxing was incredibly difficult, but we hauled it off.
The races went ahead back then, thanks to the help of dozens of volunteers.
We had people out shoveling, going into the woods and finding the deeper snow and shoveling it out on course. And we didn't have the grooming equipment that we have today. We had an old Alpine snowmobile dragging a rake that we had made, and one of our members made a track setter out of heavy metal, and now we have a state-of-the-art piston bully groomer, and it can work miracles, and we have a good backup skidoo that works quite well too.
The trails are in tip-top shape, and the club is not worried about a little rain and some mild temperatures in the forecast.
We have a really good team here. We have over 30 people. I don't know the precise number, but there's over 30 people involved in the races now. So we got a good crew.
The games will kick off with opening ceremonies Saturday night.
If you just look at the schedule, figure out what your interest is, I would advise everybody to take in a little bit of everybody's sport, so you get the full exposure. That's what I would do. That's what I'm going to do. My heart is at the rink, but I'm going to be everywhere.
So what can spectators expect during the week-long event?
I think they can expect to see the best athletes that we have in the province at their various age groups. Kids are practicing. I say kids, young athletes, young adults are practicing continuously in their sport. And now this is a showcase of all the different sports. This is probably as big as you're going to get. We're talking like 1,400 athletes, officials, spectators, moms, dads, grandparents, and the like. It's probably going to bring a lot of economic spin-off to the community for sure.
Work leading up to the games is not finished, of course. Once school is closed Friday, the furniture and desks will come out of the schools and they'll be converted into sleeping quarters for the athletes' villages, all in time for the opening of the games, which takes place Saturday evening here at the Steele Community Center. Troy Turner, CBC News, Gander.
Well, it was a big night for Newfoundland sports teams, with both the Rogues and Growlers picking up wins again. Both teams defeated teams from Reading, Pennsylvania. Corner Brook local Daniel Fu made his Rogues debut this season. The former Munn basketball player missed time earlier this year due to injury. The Rogues made quick work, 144 to 127. It was a big night for Marquis Collins, who finished with 45 points, the most ever scored by a Newfoundland Rogues player, and also tied the most points scored in a basketball Super League game. The two teams play again on Friday night. Now, while the Rogues held court in St. John's, the Growlers were in Reading, Pennsylvania for a game against the Royals.
Fired wide by Berezowski. Chipped in front, they score!
The Newfoundland Growlers scored 4 goals in less than 11 minutes during the second period, and the Growlers were able to knock off the Royals 5-3. It was a big win for Newfoundland, who currently holds the 8th and final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. The Growlers enjoy a day of rest today before heading to Quebec to play Trois-Rivières tomorrow night.
The sushi restaurant in Corner Brook takes farm salmon off the menu.
They're also taken away from wild fish.
I'll tell you why. And why the Aquaculture Industry Association calls it a big mistake.
Look, obviously we are frustrated with this.
That's tonight on Here and Now.
We've got some ice pellets and some freezing rain, as well as some snow to the west. We'll talk all about that and how long it's going to stick around when I come back.
Time for a look at the weather, and you've been telling us about this messy system that's on its way. I guess it's coming here this evening?
It's here pretty much with that freezing rain already being reported at the airport in St. John's. Temperatures today milder than they have been, especially up across Labrador. Temperatures into the minus single digits, stay hovering around 0 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Cartwright was at +1 today. Temperatures across the island again into the minus single digits this afternoon. But if you take a look at the temperature change, anywhere from 7 to 11 degrees warmer across the Big Land, a little less than that, about 4 degrees warmer in Nain. But even across the island, 4 to about 6 degrees warmer than where we were sitting yesterday. So temperatures, though, are still sitting into the minus single digits. Temperatures are going to play a role in the type of weather that we see overnight tonight as well, because they are going to hover around the 0 degree mark or even a little bit below across the island and across the Avalon and most of eastern Newfoundland tonight, which means we will see that freezing rain continue for a good chunk of the night. So we do have this little trough, or this little stationary front rather, up across Labrador that is going to spark some flurries and some light snow as we head through the overnight, but the main event really will be that area of low pressure affecting the island tonight. Some of that snow already working its way further north, in fact, towards the west coast of the island through Gander. And then at this point, just west of the isthmus is where we are seeing that snow. A little bit of ice pellet activity as well for the northern Burin Peninsula, as well as the northwest Avalon. Otherwise, the southern Burin Peninsula, as well as the Avalon, most of the Avalon, is seeing that freezing rain at the moment. And again, this is generally what is going to stick with us as we head through tonight. Future Tracker doing a good job. It's a little bit too far south, though, for the snow at the moment, but really picking up that ice pellet and potential for freezing rain very well. So as we head through the next couple of hours, we will see that freezing rain move towards the Bonavista Peninsula, rather, and even through to Clarenville. We'll likely see an ice pellet or snow mixture through Terra Nova and Gander at this point, and westward really are going to stay in that snow. You may see some ice pellets in the mix, but generally this should be a mainly snow event. Now, for the Avalon, you're seeing some of that pink continue to show up. That's because higher elevations will likely see those temperatures hovering near or just below 0 tonight, which could keep you in that freezing rain. Otherwise, temperatures will be a little bit above, even a couple of tenths of a degree above 0 will change that precipitation over to rain. So that should stick with us through the night as we get into tomorrow morning. Early tomorrow morning, like I said, the Bonavista Peninsula, you will likely end as freezing rain by the time we get into that time frame. So as far as our temperatures are concerned, this is where we should bottom out, about -1 in St. John's. Temperatures will warm as we get towards the morning. Labrador, mild as well, relatively speaking. This is quite almost 15 degrees warmer in some cases than where you should be sitting as your nighttime lows, about -5 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. And again, looking at that potential for some snow. So the majority of the freezing rain, probably somewhere between 5 to 10 millimeters. By the time this is all said and done, we could see some pockets of higher than that if you stay in the freezing rain a little longer. But that is why we're seeing those freezing rain warnings. Now, as far as the rainfall warnings are concerned, mostly southeastern portions of the Avalon will see that 20 to 40 millimeters. It's certainly possible, otherwise 10 to 20 millimeters. So this could lead to some pooling of some water on the roads. But again, this will be done by the time we get into the morning hours. And as far as snowfall is concerned, not super significant, maybe 5 to 10 centimeters should be the most that we see. And then again, tomorrow we will see that end in the morning, and most of us will see some clearing skies. We may hang on to some of that cloud cover as we get into the afternoon hours. Temperatures tomorrow should be above 0 right across the board. A little cooler, though, for the northern peninsula into the minus single digits. Labrador, you're going to hang on to these mild temperatures as well, anywhere from about 0 to -2. A little cooler to the north, but this cold air is going to move back in the long-range forecast. We'll get into that when I come back.
There was actually 5 Inuit models from within Nunatsiavut. One of them was my daughter.
Fresh off the runway at New York Fashion Week, Rigolette designer April Allen is showcasing Inuit fashion and getting international attention. A popular sushi restaurant in Corner Brook says it will no longer serve ocean-based farmed Atlantic salmon. The owner says the farmed fish is not safe or environmentally sustainable, but the aquaculture industry disagrees. Here Now's Colleen Connors has more.
Kevin Vincent opens Newfound Sushi in a couple of hours. It's prep time. The popular spot on Broadway would normally go through up to 100 pounds of salmon a week.
I substituted it with wild Arctic char and wild sockeye salmon.
But you can't get wild Atlantic salmon in Canada, and Vincent took farm salmon off his menu last week.
You know, what are they feeding these fish? And where is it being farmed? And it's right along salmon rivers. It's right near in bays where it goes in to the end of the bay. There's a salmon river that goes up. So the salmon have to pass by these farms, and these farms have sea lice outbreaks, and they can attack the salmon. When the salmon, the Farm salmon get out of the pens because there's always escapes. They go up the rivers, they compete for the same food, and then they mate with the wild species. So it's really doing a lot of damage to our marine ecosystem.
Vincent is not the first chef to do this. Michelin-starred venues in the UK have done away with farmed salmon. Top chefs in Vancouver protest the use of farmed salmon, saying they want to protect wild salmon stocks, with big concerns about thousands of salmon in a small place, where waste builds up and chemicals are used to treat salmon lice outbreaks.
Well, look, obviously we are frustrated with this, but only because it's a decision not based on really any actual facts or truth. And it casts a lot of unfounded aspersions on thousands of hardworking folks in the province.
The province's Aquaculture Association says the farmed salmon raised in the province are safe and sustainable, producing less carbon than any other animal production.
And we're going to need seafood farming as populations grow. I mean, it was only a few years ago that actually farmed seafood surpassed wild seafood in terms of global consumption. And as the numbers of people on our planet grow, we're going to need to be able to find, ways to increase and improve and grow on the farm side.
Back in the kitchen, Vincent says even though he's taking a loss, farmed salmon is $4 cheaper a pound. He's still receiving positive feedback from customers and the public about the move. And he says business is up. Now, Vincent just hopes that his big decision to remove farmed salmon from his menu will encourage other restaurant owners in the area to do the same. Pauline Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Fresh off the New York Fashion Week runway, Rigolette's April Allen is gaining international attention. The designer recently traveled to Manhattan to showcase her clothing brand Stitched by April. Along for the ride, 5 Indigenous models from Nunatsiavut. Here and Now's Daryl Din caught up with Allen when she returned to Labrador.
April, I just got back from New York City Fashion Week. How did that go?
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. The entire time that we were there, it was, just flat out busy, but the whole entire experience was absolutely amazing.
What was it like to see your pieces of work come down the runway?
Oh my goodness. Well, I was backstage, so I was doing the queue of, when the models went out, but I could still see the screen in the back there, and it was just absolutely amazing. The entire thing came together, including, not just my designs and models from home, and but the background itself was donated to me by another Inuit artist, Eldred, and just using that background of home, where we're from, who we are. And having my mother and my grandparents up on that screen was just, it came together so well. And even the music was all Inuit singers, so it was an amazing show. There was actually 5 Inuit models from within Nunatsiavut. One of them was my daughter, and then one was my cousin, a dear friend of mine, and her daughter, and then another girl that I met this year. I also had an Inuit model from Iqaluit, Nunavut, and she actually helped to raise money for me to go to New York as well, which was very heartwarming.
And you're designing, you started this, did you ever think you'd get to go to such a huge event?
I had always hoped for it, but I'm still kind of a little bit in awe that, I have made it to New York. Since then, I've been invited to Los Angeles and to Paris as well.
To do a new show, usually is it different or new pieces?
Yes, usually, you'll make a new collection. When I went to New York, it was right after Vancouver. So I put a lot of my pieces in from there, and I did manage to make a few new pieces for the show as well. But for Paris, I would like to come up with an entire new collection to showcase there.
What would you say to the girl from Rigolette standing in the middle of Times Square seeing her design?
Oh my God. Oh, I don't even know. I'm just thinking about what I would say, to any youth that may be watching it. Is you can do anything you put your mind to.
Well, for 1 week, the Cape Cordell was aground in Fortune, but today, determined crews finally managed to free the heavy fishing trawler. That story ahead. Crews have been working for a week to assist a fishing trawler that ran aground in Fortune. But weather has not been on their side until today. The Cape Cordell has sustained damage to its hull, but as of this afternoon, it is no longer grounded. And that's thanks to crews aboard tugboats, a utility vessel, and the Canadian Coast Guard. And as you're about to hear, it was no easy feat.
We've been here a week now, 6 of the 7 days. The weather just hasn't cooperated with us at all. Very strong winds and snow. Today, however, we finally got our break. We had high tides, so this morning we were able to successfully pull the vessel off the rocks, off the beach here in Fortune, and get it secured alongside the dock where it sits now. There was an underwater hull survey conducted by the dive contractors, and they did identify and confirm that there's quite a bit of damage to the hull of the vessel. So I guess the vessel owner has to address them now before he goes any further with anything. The biggest environmental concern was the pollution on board the vessel, and that was our main concern. That's our core mandate, is preventing marine pollution. So very early on, after we met with the owner and sort of went over his role and responsibilities and all this, the first thing we got was the bulk oil pollution off. So we engaged a waste management company to come, and we removed approximately 14,000 liters of oil, hydrocarbon products. Just a very minor non-recoverable sheen identified. I think it might have been the second day, but we identified where that was coming from, and we addressed it immediately. So there was nothing significant. It was prudent. It was the right decision to get that bulk oil pollution off, because if things didn't have to work out as well as it did, and that product had to get into the marine environment, that would have been catastrophic. So it was a big save there for the marine environment by having that out of the vessel, and then one less thing to have to worry about during the tug operations. The water in this particular part of the shoreline, it got shallow fairly quickly, so it just posed some challenges with the tugboats, with them getting in close enough to be able to do what they had to do. So that was a challenge. But the tug contractor, they brought the right people, they brought the right resources, knowledgeable folks. They were able to identify strong points on the vessel, but it took several attempts using two tugboats. They did break a couple of lines during the process of it, but I'd say from start to finish, probably an hour and a half to 2 hours of different maneuvers with the tugs, excellent communication between the tug captains to make it a success. There was a lot of excitement. I was out on the water in one of our fast rescue craft, just acting as a safety boat. But the incident commander here on site, he was in our mobile incident command post, and he said he had mentioned that there was a lot of cheers from the public here once we knew that the vessel was going to be successfully towed off the rock. So it's a good news story for sure for the folks of Fortune, and as well for the vessel owner. So while he do have some damage done to his vessel, I'm sure it's salvageable. Hopefully he'll be able to get the repairs done and get back out on the water doing what they enjoy doing, and fishing.
The joys of swimming outdoors in Newfoundland and Labrador all year long. Watch Outdoor Dipping, Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
Okay, so we're gonna have a look at the long range, but Ashley, I know when I saw the amount of rain that was coming down in the freezing rain, I was like, I wonder if that means things are gonna flood a little bit because drains are covered with all the snow. Is that something that you're worried about?
I don't think so. I think the rain that's going to fall is falling over a fairly long period of time, and the snow I think can handle that for now. I mean, we'll probably see some pooling on some roads or stuff, but I think that's about it, which is good. Most of it should fall as freezing rain over the next couple of hours anyway.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, in the long range forecast, we do have a warm up on the way. That will happen as we head into Saturday. That's when our next system will move in. So this one looks like it will bring some significant rainfall now to the southwestern portion of the island. It may start as some freezing rain briefly, but temperatures are really going to warm up, and we really could see some heavy rain on the south coast of the island. So this one bears watching for sure. Up across Labrador, this will be a snow event for most except southeastern portions of Labrador, where we will likely see temperatures above zero and some rain in the mix, but it will quickly change back over to snow in behind that as we stay on the cold side, or as the cold side rather moves across eastern portions of Labrador and then eventually across the island. So temperatures, take a look at this. 4 to 8 degrees above zero. Now this is when we will likely see some melting along with that snow, which could lead to definitely some pooling of water. And we're certainly going to have to keep an eye on that forecast. Winds will also be very breezy, especially for western portions of the island, and then southwest as well. So around the Port Basque area. And then even Burgeo, where we will likely see the heaviest rain. They could, like I said, be some fairly significant rainfall. Labrador, you are going to see the mildest temperatures in the southeast, but still looking at temperatures around 1 degree for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Cartwright. Cold air on the backside of this one. Lab City, you sit this one out, minus 14 will be your daytime high. So Saturday evening, that rain will move east. Eventually, we'll see that in the metro area. I don't think we'll see too much in the way of rain, but we will certainly see those milder temperatures. Snow again will move back in for southeastern portions of Labrador and onshore flurries. The story for the west coast for your Sunday, and that will move through quickly, and we'll actually see some clearing through the afternoon on Sunday. Temperatures will drop dramatically in behind that front, with temperatures down to the minus single digits and hovering around the 0 degree mark for St. John's. Up across Labrador, you're looking at your drop of temperatures as well. Eventually, by the time we get into Monday, Tuesday, back down below zero. Flurries will move back in, and then some clearing skies on Tuesday. And then for central Newfoundland, like I said, windy Saturday. This will likely hang around till Sunday, but quiet weather for the most part as we get into the middle of next week. But again, dropping in temperatures, especially the overnight lows in central. Western, not quite as cold, but still into the minus single digits with flurries by the time we get into Tuesday. And then for eastern Labrador, you're looking at that flurry activity right through Sunday morning and then clearing. And it'll stay nice through Tuesday with your temperature still above where you should be sitting this time of year into the minus single digits. But again, for Labrador, some more snow possible on Monday. Now, our photo of the day. It has been a beautiful day, couple of days to drive across the island. This is a sunset from the highway there just outside of Deep Bite. Thank you for that, Derek. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that's a lovely shot. Ashley, you did some highway driving when you went out to Central. You saw a moose, right?
I did. We locked eyes.
Oh, that is always frightening.
Yeah.
And it was a young moose?
It was just a young one. He just looked at me and then he went back into the... But still, slow right down.
Yeah. Good reminder for anyone traveling out on the highway that they're around for sure. Well, that's it for us on this Thursday evening. Thank you so much for spending part of your night with us.
Good night.